Pastor John Brayland here, pastor of Freshwater Church and the president of International Ministerial Fellowship. We're doing a series of videos to help you become a better leader and be more effective in the role that you currently serve. Today, I want to talk about leading effective boards, because chances are you're in ministry, you're either on a board or you lead a board or both. And you know what I'm talking about when we talk about leading ineffective board meetings or being a part of ineffective board meetings. I have been a part of many board meetings that were completely ineffective, lasted for hours and hours, and we accomplished very little. I've also been on boards where we really didn't know what we were doing, but I was on a board. We were told that they needed a board, so we had a board. I don't remember my role on it, but we really didn't have any function or purpose. So I want to give you some tips today on how to lead effective board meetings, all right? First is this. The board needs to know what type of board it is. Is it an advisory board or is it a decision-making board? There is a huge difference. A decision-making board makes a decision that is implemented. An advisory board makes a decision and they advise someone else. So you need to define what type of board it is. Also, is it a finance board? Talk about finances. Is it facilities related? Talks about facilities. Is it education? Talks about education. Is it an elder board? Talk about spiritual matters. And some churches use just an elder board to oversee the whole ministry of the church. Or is it a governing board where everyone kind of has a say and comes in from a different angle, but that is the final authority? You have to define what type of board it is. That's very, very critical. If people don't know what type of board it is or their role on that board, how can you expect them to make effective decisions or have an effective course of action? You simply can't. Also, I like to revisit our purpose on our board several times a year because I sit on multiple boards and I chair multiple boards. And it's always good to go back and revisit the purpose. Like, why are you on this board? Why are you involved in this particular ministry or this event? For example, I actually chair the Waconia Food Shelf board now. And on that, I've gone back and revisited our purpose several times. I said, okay, why do we exist as a board? And get everyone in the room on the same page. We exist to make sure that people in our community have food security. That's why we exist. We want to provide food for people. So I'll revisit that several times. It helps people stop looking kind of at what's right in front of them and helps them to understand the overall picture. Or the elder board at church will oftentimes revisit our purpose as a church. We exist to reach people for Christ, to equip them, to help build them up, connect them with other Christians, and really send them out to make disciples of their own. I like to revisit that purpose because it connects people, again, with the mission. If they're going to volunteer their time, they need to know that what they are doing matters. All right, here's some of the nuts and bolts about actually leading a board meeting. First is this: be prepared. Be prepared. Do your homework. Gather all relevant materials prior to the meeting. If it's finance reports, if it's education reports, if it's facility reports, gather all of the information that you need. And if you're responsible to generate that information, make sure that you are prepared and send it in advance to everyone on the board so that they can see what they need to do. They can do their homework, and hopefully when they come to the meeting, they come prepared. That means that your time will be far more efficient because everyone looks and is coming with the questions that they might have pertaining to the finances per se, or the facility, or the mission, or whatever else. They already come with questions, and that's a great thing. So put some general items on the board to be discussed first, because usually people come charged, meaning they come from work or their family. And the first item on the agenda, everyone just wants to go rah, 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 talk about. So just have something on there that is not super important, it's not totally unimportant, but put the first item on there as something that you're not going to die on that hill, because people come charged, and so they're ready to make decisions or express grievances. So put something out there first that allows them to get out all of their emotions and just brings them back down to reality. Just a little pro tip for you there. Second, don't always save the biggest decisions for the end. You want to make sure that you allocate plenty of time to get through the big decisions. So put them somewhere in the middle of your agenda. Also, don't cram too much on your agenda. So don't have 500 points of action. Have a few key points of action. It's okay to punt. So let me define that. It's okay to punt something into next month's meeting or next quarterly meeting. You don't always have to make all of the decisions at one meeting. Yes, if it's important, you need to make that decision, but be okay with making some of the decisions and just punting them into the next month. That's okay. It's okay to have some carryover. And also work through the agenda and add items to the open forum section. So I'm going to get to that in just a second. So allow people on the board to send in questions or comments or things that they want to talk about to the person who's creating the agenda in advance. So they can send that in so they'll know that what they're going to get covers. Second is use a standard format. Maybe I should have said this right off the bat. Use a standard format. So when you send an agenda, make sure that you use the same standard agenda every single month. So you can have prayer, praises, reports, and then your agenda items and things that you need for resolutions. And then I usually have an open forum section at the end, so anything we want to discuss, and then I'll put down another vision. These are things that we want to talk about that are important, but maybe it's something that I'm working on or someone else is working on if they're the chair. So we put a vision section in the bottom. Some churches use Robert's Rules of Order, and I just want you to know, in ministries, Robert's Rules of Order is not found even in the King James Version of the Bible. Just to be really clear on that, right? It's not in the NIV, not in the KJV, not in the New American Standard. It is simply a practice that has been adopted and used by the church and by pretty much most nonprofits throughout the years. But in a board meeting, you do not have to use Robert's Rules of Order, especially like an elder board meeting. Let me just say that. Some meetings, yes, according to your bylaws, it does specifically state you need to use Robert's Rules of Order. That's fine, then you need to use that. But if you're an elder board at a church, you don't have to use Robert's Rules of Order. And even if it's in your bylaws, you probably need to change your bylaws. An elder board should lead by consensus, meaning that everyone agrees to either accept the decision or further discussion or whatever. But you don't have to always use Robert's Rules of Order. You can also use a Carver model of governance. I'm not going to go into that deep here, but a Carver model of governance oftentimes uses a task force to complete something. Task force has a beginning date and an end date, unlike a committee that typically exists year-round and goes on and on and on. A task force is used for something for a short season and then ends. So, and then on the Carver model, you typically lead through policy and lead with the end in mind. So just something there to think about what type of structure you're going to have at your board meetings. Think that through and be consistent with it. Also, equip the board to make the decisions or to take the actions that they need to take. So if they're a decision-making board, they need to know that the decisions that they make, that's what's going to stand. If it's an advisory decision, they need to know that whatever they come to, it will be passed on. Like in a community, you might have a planning committee. Well, they're not the final authority, they're just the planning committee. The city council is the final authority. The planning committee is an advisory team to the city council. That's just speaking about a city governance model there. But equip them to make the decisions or actions that they need to make. Give them opportunities to grow. It's okay to resource your board, give them podcasts to listen to or watch, give them books to read or articles. Help them to grow in that position so they can make better decisions, especially if you are the board chair or leading that particular area. It's okay to equip your board to be the best that they can be. And also make sure that you always act as a team and not as individuals. So after the decision has been made, it's been made in the boardroom, that decision stands. Even if you personally don't like it, you're part of that board, the board approved it, now you need to speak in unison. Don't say, I approved it, but so-and-so didn't, and this person didn't, and this person didn't. You're just going to cause gossip and triangulation in your organization. So a board decision is made just like that, as a board. Here's some things not to do, all right? Very quickly, not to do. Don't dictate everything. If you dictate everything, they will be a rubber stamping board. And really, are you really leading if all you have is a rubber stamping board? Second is don't be the hero all the time. Don't be the hero of your story. Don't be the hero of the boardroom. You don't have to be the hero all the time. Put the mission first, not your own personal agenda. Third is don't discourage discussion. If there's discussion on the board, have a beginning, have an end to it, but allow time for people to express their thoughts and opinions. And don't tell the people what you think the board should do before they do it. So don't give them the resolution before you even discuss it. That's just not okay. You want to offer some time for discussion. And don't act as individuals. Stand on your decision as a team. Said that just a minute ago. Stand on your decision as a team. And don't let a board member hijack the meeting. Boy, this happens all the time, doesn't it? When you have one board member there that is always the one to chime in, and oftentimes they hijack the whole meeting. Well, you can't allow that to happen. And oftentimes you need to have a conversation with this individual prior to the meeting, or direct the chair of the board to have a conversation with this person prior to the meeting. And don't be that person. You don't ever want to hijack the board. Well, that's my tips for leading an effective board. When you have an effective board, they're able to make good decisions in real time, and the ministry will advance. That is critical. If you have an ineffective board, you waste people's time, it's boring, they lose track of what they're actually supposed to do, and quite frankly, the ministry, whatever you're part of, is going to be stagnant. It's just not going to be effective. Boards are there to be a sounding board, a crisis team in waiting, and to provide accountability to the key leader. Anyways, that's it for now. Take care, and we'll talk to you again soon.